Turn the car around.
Now.
That's what my dad whispered to my mom on that quiet highway stretch. We were halfway to our family cabin, our first trip in years. The radio played soft jazz. My little brother had finally fallen asleep. And just like that, everything changed.
Why?
I asked. My dad's hands clenched the seat. Just please. Turn around. I'd never heard fear like that in his voice. My name is Haley Strickland. And if you think you know how this ends, stay tuned. Because when your parents beg you to run, but won't tell you what you're running from, what do you do with the silence? What do you do with the secrets they've buried in your name? The rest of the ride back was dead silent. Except for Mom's breathing, fast and shallow. Except for Dad's eyes in the rearview, darting like prey. They didn't speak for 20 minutes. Then, I didn't think she'd be there, Mom whispered. She's always there, Dad muttered. She's never left. I turned my head. Who's she? They said nothing. Not when I asked again. Not when we stopped for gas. Not even when we got home and I begged them to talk. Instead, they locked the bedroom door. And I lay awake that night, hearing them argue in hushed tones. Something about a promise. Something about 30 years ago. Something about me. At 2:03 a.m., the door creaked open. My dad stood there. His face looked different in the dark. Older. Broken. He handed me a dusty photo. Edges curled, colors faded. 3 people stood smiling in front of the exact same cabin we were driving to.
A man.
A woman. And the girl. My jaw dropped. Because the girl in the photo? She looked exactly like me. Same freckles. Same dimple. Same birthmark on the collarbone. But the photo was dated. 1993. 6 years before I was even born. She had your name too, Dad whispered. Haley. I froze. He tucked the photo into my hand and said one thing before walking away. She died in that cabin. And the day you were born, she came back. I didn't sleep. Not because I was scared, but because I was staring at her. The girl in the photo. Same crooked smile.
Same lazy eye.
Same scar by the chin that I thought was mine alone. I turned the photo over. A note, scribbled in ink barely visible under the yellowing paper. For Haley. So you'll always remember who you were. Who I was. At breakfast, I laid the photo on the table between us. Talk. Dad just stared at it. Mom shook her head like it would rattle the memory loose. She was our first daughter, Mom finally said. She died at 7. The doctors said it was natural. But it wasn't, Dad added quietly. She drowned in the lake. Alone. At night. She wasn't supposed to be outside. But you said it was natural causes. That's what we told everyone. Even ourselves. But why hide it from me? Why pretend she never existed? My mom's hands trembled as she reached for her tea. Because the night you were born, we heard her voice again. I blinked. You mean spiritually? Like grief hallucination? No, my dad said, voice barely above a whisper. I mean we heard her. In the hospital.
Clear as day.
She said, Mommy, don't forget me again. My skin prickled. We thought we were losing our minds, Mom said. Until the nurse walked in holding you and dropped the chart. Because she said you looked like a ghost. I wanted to laugh.
Scream.
Say they were being ridiculous. But deep down, I remembered something. At age 4, I used to talk to someone at night. A girl who would sit by my window. I called her Mirror Haley. I thought it was just an imaginary friend. She'd say strange things like, this time, don't go in the water. This time, stay away from the swing. I thought it was normal. Until now. I want to go to the cabin, I said. Both of them snapped their heads toward me. No, Dad said instantly. We left for a reason. I want answers. He hesitated, then quietly said, you don't search for what's already found you once. But that night, I packed my bag and slipped out the door. Because some stories don't wait for permission. They wait for return. The air around the cabin was still. Not peaceful. Not quiet. Still, like something was holding its breath. I hadn't been there in years, yet my hands knew exactly where the spare key was hidden. Under the rusted wind chime shaped like a sunflower. The one Mom said was just decoration. I unlocked the door. The wood groaned like it hadn't been touched in decades. Inside, everything was preserved. Too preserved. Couch cushions untouched. Cups still stacked. A drawing on the fridge. Faded crayon lines of a little girl by a lake. The name in the corner? Haley. I swallowed hard. I wandered room to room, heart thudding. Then I saw it. A small door I had never noticed before, tucked behind the hallway coat rack, covered in dust. Not just any door, a crawl space. I hesitated, reached for the knob.
Locked.
Something in me whispered, don't force it. So instead, I explored the basement. That's when I found the box. An old toy chest, covered in cobwebs. But it wasn't toys inside, it was journals. Dozens of them. Small, cloth-bound, each labeled. Haley, age 5. Haley, age 6. Haley, final. My fingers shook as I opened the last one. The final page read, "They think I'm sleeping, but I'm not. I heard them say I shouldn't be here anymore. That something's wrong with me. But I didn't do anything. I just told the truth." Below it, a child's drawing. 3 stick figures by a lake. One crossed out in red. The one labeled Haley. I stepped back. Suddenly, the floorboard creaked behind me. I spun around. No one. Just the heavy breath of silence. And the faint sound of dripping water from somewhere it shouldn't have been dripping. Then, the lights flickered.
Once. Twice. Out.
I froze. And in that pitch black, a whisper crawled across the room. It was soft. Childlike. "This time, don't let them lie." The air turned icy. My breath visible in clouds. The journal pages fluttered. And just before the lights returned, I saw her reflection. In the mirror behind me. Smiling. But I wasn't smiling. And I wasn't alone. I ran. Out of the basement. Up the stairs. Into the open air. But the forest around the cabin looked wrong. Taller.
Thicker.
Like it had grown overnight just to trap me inside. I stood on the porch, gasping. And that's when I saw the car. Parked halfway down the gravel road. Dad's truck. He was here. I barely made it to the front steps before I shouted, "Why didn't you tell me everything?" He didn't look surprised to see me.
He looked resigned.
"I told your mother this would happen," he muttered. "That if we didn't burn it all, it would find its way back." "What is it?"
I yelled.
He walked past me and into the cabin like he was walking into a memory. And maybe he was. "Your sister didn't drown, Haley," he said. "She was pushed." That word stopped my breath. I found her that night. By the lake. Her eyes wide open. Not afraid. Just waiting. "Who did it?" I whispered. He sat down on the old plaid sofa, head in hands. "I don't know. We never did." But the week after, strange things started happening. The swing outside creaking at midnight. Footsteps in the hallway. Journals written in ink we didn't own. Your mother started waking up with scratches on her arms. I swallowed hard. "Why did you name me after her?" He finally looked at me. "Because the name came to me in a dream." She whispered it. I turned away. My skin felt too tight. "She's not just a ghost," I said. "She's angry. She's been trying to warn me, protect me, or something." He stood and walked to the crawl space. "Whatever she is, this is where it started." He pulled out a small iron key from his pocket. "Last time we opened this, we closed it forever. But maybe it's time." The key fit perfectly. The door groaned. Inside, the space was barely lit. Just one old trunk and a child's shoe. I picked up the shoe. A name was scribbled on the bottom. Adeline. "Who's Adeline?" I asked. Dad froze. That was her friend. The one she said pushed her. My heart dropped. Because that name, it was on the contact list of my phone. My childhood babysitter. The one who still called me on my birthday. The one Mom always avoided when she visited. The one who, 20 minutes before we turned around, had texted me, Can't wait to finally see you again at the lake. I dropped the shoe.
Adeline.
The name echoed in my head like a forgotten lullaby twisted wrong. I pulled out my phone, scrolled to her last message. Can't wait to finally see you again at the lake. I never replied. I hadn't even noticed it at the time. Now it felt like a warning disguised as a welcome. I turned to my dad. Why would she text me? After all these years? He looked pale. Because she thinks you're her friend. The one she never finished with. I backed away. You think she believes I'm Haley? She doesn't just believe it, he whispered. She's always believed it. Because something in her broke that night. I stared at the crawlspace trunk. A name was carved faintly on the lid. A+H= forever friends. I opened it. Inside were a pink sweater, size 6, a friendship bracelet broken, and a cassette tape labeled, "Last day, just us." I found the old player tucked behind the trunk. Slid in the tape.
Play.
A child's voice giggled. Okay, it's recording. Another voice followed.
Softer.
Do you really have to move, Haley?
No.
Mommy said we can stay one more day. Silence. Then a whisper. If I can't keep you, I'll make sure no one else can.
A splash.
Then static. I dropped the player. Dad shut the crawlspace. We buried that tape years ago. It was in the trunk. No, Haley, we burned the trunk. I didn't answer. Because suddenly, my phone buzzed again. A photo. From an unknown number. Taken just now.
Me.
Standing at the cabin window. Except, I wasn't at the window. I was in the hallway. I bolted outside. Spun in every direction. No one. But then I heard it, a soft, sweet humming. From the trees. I turned slowly. A figure. Standing just at the edge of the forest. A woman. Long brown braid. Yellow sundress. Head tilted.
It was Adeline.
Older. But not. She raised her hand slowly and waved. And my body? It remembered. The same wave I saw every summer growing up. The same tilt of the head. She mouthed one thing before disappearing into the trees. Let's go back to where it ended. And for the first time in my life, I felt the weight of someone else's memory pulling me toward the lake. I didn't tell Dad where I was going. Some truths don't wait for permission. They burn through your skin until you chase them down barefoot. The trees grew tighter the closer I got to the water. Like nature itself was trying to rewind time. To drag me back to the moment I never lived, but somehow remembered. When the lake finally appeared, I stopped. The water was perfectly still. Not a ripple. Not a breeze. Just that haunting reflection of the sky. And something floating near the dock. A yellow sundress. She was waiting. Adeline turned when she heard my steps. She smiled like we were kids again. Except we never were.
Haley, she said.
Not a question. I'm not her, I replied. But even as I said it, part of me wasn't sure. She stepped closer, barefoot on the dock's wooden slats. You remember the swing? She asked. A memory surged, rope creaking, feet kicking skyward, her laughter rising like wind. I pushed you too hard once, she whispered. You cried. Then you forgave me. I blinked. That wasn't me. She tilted her head. But you have her eyes.
I didn't reply.
My heart thundered in my ears. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the bracelet. The one from the trunk. Whole again. I've been waiting to finish our promise. I'm not Haley. She stepped closer. Then why did you come? Because I had to. Because the voice in my head hadn't been just mine. Because the girl in the mirror wasn't just a ghost. She was me, split down the middle. You kept the bracelet, she said, voice trembling. Even after the lake. I glanced at my wrist and froze. There it was. The bracelet. I hadn't worn it. I hadn't even taken it from the trunk. But it was there.
Tight.
Familiar. Like it never left. I looked up. Adeline was crying. I'm sorry I pushed you. I was scared you'd leave. Everyone leaves. My voice cracked. You did more than push. She nodded slowly. I know. Then she stepped back, toward the water, and whispered, this time, I'll go first. Before I could speak, she was gone, slipped beneath the surface like a thread pulled tight. The lake rippled, and then stillness. But something shifted in me. I didn't feel her presence anymore, but I felt mine for the first time. The sun was rising when I stepped away from the lake. Light spilled across the trees like forgiveness. But it didn't erase what I'd seen. Or what I now knew. The girl in the photo. The one who looked like me. She hadn't haunted my life. She'd been sharing it. I walked back to the cabin slowly, unsure of what I'd say. But Dad was already waiting on the porch, holding the journals. He looked up at me with eyes that had carried too much silence. "She's gone, isn't she?" he asked. I nodded. His shoulders fell in a way that looked like peace, not defeat. "She didn't want revenge," I whispered. "She wanted to be remembered right." He handed me the top journal, Haley, age 7. "Then it's time we told the truth." We drove straight to town, to the old records office. We showed them the journals, the drawing, the cassette tape. We told them there had been another Haley, that she didn't die from illness, that she died alone in a lake, and no one had ever asked why. It took hours. Statements.
Tears.
Silence. But when it was done, when the report was filed, when the investigator promised to reopen the case, something lifted. That night, back home, Mom sat on the edge of my bed. She reached out and brushed my hair behind my ear like she used to when I was little. "I knew," she said softly. "All these years I knew. You'd say things only she ever said. You liked the same cereal. You hated the same lullaby. You screamed in your sleep on the same day every year." "Her death day," I whispered. She nodded, eyes red. "I was too afraid to love you fully. I thought if I did, I'd lose her all over again." I leaned in and held her. For the first time, really held her. Because the girl I'd been, and the girl they'd lost, were finally whole. Later that night, I opened the final journal again. On the very last page, something new had appeared. A line in neat, steady handwriting that hadn't been there before. "Thank you. I can rest now." And below it, the two names. Haley and Adeline. Not crossed out. Not erased. Just written side by side. Together. 2 weeks later, we held a small memorial by the lake. No headlines. No cameras. Just truth. We placed a new headstone beside the water, engraved with a name that had gone unspoken for too long. Haley Strickland, forever 7.
Loved.
Remembered.
Found.
Adeline's case was harder. Her records were sealed, her guardians long gone. But in the town's archives, a forgotten file surfaced, a report about a child placed in temporary care near our lake the same summer Haley died. She had no family after that. Just a trail of foster homes and never-healed wounds. I asked to meet her one last time. But the mental facility where she'd been recently admitted told me she passed away. Just 2 days after she saw me. Cardiac arrest. No warning. No pain. But part of me knows she didn't die from her heart. She died from what had finally let go. And maybe that was enough. I returned to the cabin once more, alone this time. The lake was calm. Not haunted, just quiet. I stepped onto the dock, holding 2 bracelets. The one I had found, and a new one, identical, but never worn. I tied them together, placed them at the edge of the wood, and whispered, "This time we finish it." A gust of wind lifted through the trees, warm, gentle. No chill. No whispers. Just stillness that didn't feel like fear anymore. On the way back home, I looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror. For the first time, I saw only me. No shadow behind the eyes. No weight in the smile. Just a girl named Haley. Still living. Still becoming. Because sometimes, revenge isn't about rage. It's about release. Not punishing the past, but unchaining the truth. And when silence is broken, souls can finally sleep.